start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Chair, understand that within this debate, as OG, or within the whole debate, we think the the whole motion is whereby which team necessarily achieves ODI's um interests at the end of the day. So two things you're going to get from my speech is one, the context of the debate, but then secondly, why do we necessarily think we would actually have audiences kill these cyclops? We get from the info slide that this is necessarily a vision that this person necessarily sees. What then this person sees is that he sees a world where his people are going to be killed, where his soldiers are going to be killed, where his best friend is going to be killed. What is the basis of this? Is that he meets a Polyphemus sort of, group that is going to, refuse a peace deal, but then they're going to be the first people to kill his men. But then understand what kind of person this is, right? In the vast majority of cases, he's a person who puts his actions aside, but then second, he's a person who is ruthless. What then the implication is that he doesn't allow for enemies to flop anyhow. And then this sort of character enables him to actually achieve what he necessarily plans to achieve. And that is why we think it's actually better for him to kill these cyclops. But then why would he actually kill them? First and foremost, these cyclops are this sort of people who have gone ahead to, kill his men in the vast majority of cases. That is to say, from the 600 men that he had that he was coming from a war, they literally killed all his men to actually, and left him with 43 people at the end of the day. We have to we literally show you how these people necessarily don't value their life, and probably even don't necessarily go ahead and probably engage and have this sort of relationship for them to actually go ahead and take in the peace deal. So when they refuse the peace deal is when they literally go and attack the men. Why do we necessarily think this is very detrimental? At a point in time, if these people had shown mercy, they would necessarily not actually have had all this saga at the end of the day. But when they necessarily killed, then war literally started between these two parties. So why do you think as OG we necessarily audiences will actually go ahead the cyclops? In the vast majority of cases, we think that audiences most best interest is for him to actually protect his soldiers. We see that this is a person who is in command in chief, and a person, he literally leads a whole army and sort of that. But then secondly, we have to understand that the priority that he necessarily has is the sort of character he has is that whatever attack he necessarily gets, is actually supposed to actually go ahead and retaliate. From our side, two things. One, we think that it's very important for him to actually, take care of people he necessarily loves. And then, but then, first and most importantly, is the obligation he has to his soldiers. We tell you that the premise of that this Odysseus man is a commander in chief with, all the men he necessarily has to actually lead. But then on two grounds, we think that first and foremost, he values the life of these soldiers because they were literally killed. So at a point in time when he's going to go ahead and kill the cyclops, it means that the lives that he necessarily lost because of nitty-gritty things that the poly the Polyphemus literally had, is something that they should actually try to do that. But then secondly, he has his own role to protect them. What then that literally means is that as a commander or as a leader, he has that role for him to actually protect. So he has that role to actually lead, of which necessarily is supposed to fulfill at the end of the day. Why this is necessarily important is that the actor fulfills his interest or obligation, as we tell you, protection of his soldiers. But then secondly, we think he's able to show his appreciation or his appreciative manner to these soldiers at the end of the day. But then thirdly, we think he has an army necessarily to lead at the end of the day. But then on the other hand, the cyclops are these people who are going to go ahead and kill more people by default. There is no guarantee that these cyclops are literally these people who are not hardly, who are not necessarily harmful at the end of the day. These are people who are going to go ahead and kill very many people, who are going to see various or many lives being lost at the end of the day. We think that from our side of the house, once we eradicate or deal with these cyclops who are literally, very harmful, we're able to protect very many people at the end of the day. What that necessarily does is that we're able to achieve utility, we're able to achieve security, we're able to achieve, better outcomes at the end of the day once we have audiences kill the cyclops. What do you tell you from our speech? We tell you first and foremost that Odysseus has a very big role to actually protect his soldiers at the end of the day. We tell you that he has necessarily, he sees in the vision that he literally lost them all. So at a point in time, once he has this sort of vision, and we see that this goddess, or that goddess of wisdom necessarily tells him that you're supposed to kill them. Because then the degree of men he literally loses is very wide. So we clearly tell you that him, fulfilling his obligation at the end of the day is actually very beneficial for him in with all his soldiers and all that. We tell you from our side that it's very important for him to actually take care of all his people and even for people he loses, because we see that Cyclops at the end of the day are going to kill his best friend. So that necessarily takes a part of his life. So we think that it is
Yeah,
very it has a big role for him to actually go ahead and protect the people he loves, fulfill his obligation at the end of the day. And with that, um, oh yeah,
why?
I granted.
Okay, will Odysseus stay for a whole lifetime engage?
Pardon?
Will he live forever?
Will he live forever? Sure. Even though we, take a and say, even though he necessarily doesn't live for long, and we eradicate this Cyclops, at the end of the day, we see that these people do have the potential to actually keep their soldiers or to actually, protect them. Even though he dies, we necessarily don't think that these Cyclops are going to go ahead and attack, because they necessarily saw that, the outcome of what happens when they necessarily attack, these people. So even though he stays or even though he probably dies, what then that means that when we give him that incentive for him to go and kill all these Cyclops, one, we think that these Cyclops can generally reduce in number. Well, then that means that these people don't have that great power for them to actually go ahead and continue murdering all his soldiers. But then secondly, if he still stays, we think there is better protection and safety for these soldiers at the end of the day. With that, I'll beg to rest my case. Uh, 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 uh.
We welcome now the leader of opposition. It's the opposition's argument here.
Uh, okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Cool. Let me see what I can do. Okay. I need a timer. I've forgotten. I hate going beyond time, especially when things are not supposed to be mine. Okay, I hope I'm still audible. In case you have a POI, let me look at the text area so that I just keep an eye on it. Yeah, I think that's the right text area, 548. Okay, starting now. But no, there is a big thing that opening government misses out. That is to say, the appropriate context of this debate. They do not necessarily give us what entirely entails Odyssey, and they also do not give us like what entirely entails the Cyclops itself. So let me just do that, possibly within all my 5 minutes, because I don't want to wait. Firstly, we think from side or specifically that Odyssey himself entirely entails a couple of things. The first thing, on a rudimentary level, is that a model, is that he's a mortal. That rather his motto. That's to say that he will still die no matter how long it takes. He will eventually die. But the second thing is that he's still a victim of things like wear and tear. That is, he will not like perpetually remain stronger or perpetually still be relevant in the world. But the third thing is that he's a victim himself. That's to say that the gods primarily trained him to ensure that he's able to eliminate specifically those specific gods that they feel are a threat amongst themselves. That is, that he's literally used as an individual to get away with things like murder, because they know that once he's the one who does it, no one will hold him accountable, because they all contributed towards his training. But thirdly, it is basically more of like everything that he experiences in his life is determined by like the gods themselves. That's to say, superstition itself. That is, the visions that he sees are visions that are induced probably most likely by the gods. That is, he does not exist in a vacuum that is independent in and of himself. The mere fact that he's not independent in and of himself, that means the only thing that he can control are the things like his actions and the things that he does. At the point where the things that he does can literally become very detrimental, then you think that's bad. But the final thing is that everything every like okay, let me not just say the other thing because that's too much. Okay, why do we think then with everything that Oji says, that's to say that Odysseus should protect like his soldiers is a better thing compared to like that justifies killing the cyclops compared to not killing that specific cyclops? Firstly, we think that protection of the soldiers is not dependent on killing the cyclops. That's to say you can still protect those soldiers by means of like getting a better place that they will literally be. That is, the cyclops does not have any view of who they are or how they look like. That is, the mere fact that they literally covered its eye, it literally means that it's unable to like determine who the other soldiers are. The only problem is that he's the actual target. That is, he ought to protect himself as Odysseus. So I'm going to justify why even when the Cyclops knows his actual face and can literally still come for him at any time, still it is appropriate for him not to kill that Cyclops, and I'll justify that. Let me just dive into that right now. Firstly, why do we think that he shouldn't kill that specific cyclops? First is on the nature of the cyclops itself. We think that this thing specifically is like intrinsically much more powerful than on a level more gods. That's to say that it has the capability of impending destruction on humanity on a vast magnitude of scale. That is, imagine an individual having having an army that is literally indestructible, that literally cannot be curtailed at any point, having like going against such a thing, and it literally destroys some of those individuals. What does it mean? It means that at the point when you literally like show that you're interested in killing such a thing, it primarily means that it will actually act in self-defense. That is, it will advocate for anything that ensures that it can like take as many people as possible. We think that that primarily means that all those individuals who are going to lose their lives in that specific regard literally are losing it because of your kind of action. We think that that necessarily means that there is no form of accountability that's going to be held for you because you're literally like leading to the destruction of a large magnitude of humanity. Not the response to this would be like, we do not mind collateral damage so long as like other individuals live. We think that even if that's the case, it does not like impede, it does not like stop the necessity or the capability of Poseidon still creating like another like cyclops. That's to say, still getting another and who is as strong as that specific one. We think what that means is that the mere fact that Odysseus himself is immortal, it means that you will be unable to actually get any form of like redress to those individuals. Why? Because of the wear and tear effect that I literally told you, but also because he's not immortal, it means that he will probably not be there to like to save the entirety of the universe at that moment. That in and of itself justifies him not killing the Cyclops. But the second thing is on like how like it enables him to have things like autonomy of the mind. We think that from like everything you see and everything you hear, according to him, is like it is determined by things like like God's hypothetically. What does that mean? That means that everything that he literally sees in the vision means they are literally trying to drive him to act towards their own benefit. Or a specific God is trying to make him act towards their own like benefit. That primarily means that when he's actually perpetrating such a thing, that's to say he decides to kill, it means that he's just acting in form of like benefiting that specific god. What does that mean to that specific god? First, it means that that god gets an upper hand over all the other gods. That is to say, having the capability of proving that he can influence Odysseus to some extent. We think that in and of itself jeopardizes the capability of Odysseus to be relevant in that specific context of like proving his relevancy to fellow human beings that are mortals. But the second thing is that it makes him unreliable. That is to say that any vision that he literally obtains is a vision that enables him to act upon. We think that in and of itself, that makes it harder for Odysseus to be trusted on all levels, even among his own soldiers. That is, if he says that he's protecting them, they won't actually believe it because they feel that he's actually being his actions are driven by probably some other individual in and of itself. We think that makes it bad for him for that specific narrative. But how does killing the Cyclops benefit Odysseus? From OG, they say that you protect like that specific community that you're in. Let's say you also protect yourself. We think that that protection is temporary. That's to say, it's only from the Cyclops for a rudimentary level. That is to say that you're not protecting yourself from all the other aims or all the other atrocities that those gods would literally want. Remember, you're the only person who can eliminate them, so they actually all still want to eliminate you either way. But the second thing is that it makes him a target of all the other gods. The mere fact that you're the target of all the other gods, it makes it much more harder to actually self-actualize. Why? Because you're constantly on the run and trying to protect yourself. Why does killing, like not killing it, still in our world still there for him better as Odysseus himself. We say that firstly, you're probably at a possibility of getting mercy from the Cyclops. That is to say, it will literally be cognizant of the fact that initially you are not able to kill it because you pretty much like had the capability, but you didn't do it. But the second thing, it also means that you as an individual exercising your capability of humanity, of being able to be empathetic towards certain creatures. We think that in and of itself, that still provides you with self-actualization, and we are proud. Yeah, time is done. I'm done.
Okay. Give me a sec. All right, welcome the next speaker, the DPM, to continue OG's case. Here.
Okay, am I?
It's a bit faint. Can you speak again? Hello? Is it just me who can't hear him? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
You were breaking, but I think now you're back. Just try speaking.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You were breaking before.
Hi. Sorry about that. So, for points of information, just feel free to unmute and ask. Let me see. So, yeah, I'm going to start my speech in three, two, one, go. All right, so I'm struggling very much to see the relevance of OO in this debate because the material they do talk about, I don't think they mechanize them to the point that they matter in this debate. First thing is that Odysseus is an immortal and is probably going to die. I don't know why that matters here. Yes, everyone is going to die. What's the point? I don't see it. Two, like they say that what was it they said? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, Cyclops is strong, is going to kill humans. I think this is the mechanism that was missing in our case. That is more incentive for why we should kill the Cyclops. So I think the biggest problem from OO on this point is that if we just say that Cyclops is strong and is probably not going to be killed, I think that's a win for opposition. We should go home. We can't have the debate. But that's not how the debate works. Like it assumes we are able to kill the Cyclops. That is why we are debating in the first place. Is it a moral right to kill him for this guy, for Odysseus to kill Cyclops? I think opposition didn't explain. So in principle, I think we still win because the obligation exists on him as a leader, because of the people that are proximate to him are probably going to die. So this duty of care lies with him because that's the most important thing to him, the people that are closest to him, the people that he loves and stuff like that. So I think morally it's still a right thing for Cyclops to do because it ensures that he protects the most important thing to his people. I think um yeah, I think that's enough engagement for opening opposition unless the DLO has more matter. But I think the most relevant opposition might come from CG. CO. At this point, I request CO, what is your extension before I extend? Okay. Three, two, one, go. All right. So at this point, I just engaged in comparative that I think opposition needed to make in debate because the emphasis says maybe there's a probability of changing this vision. I think that is where opposition needs to run this debate on. So that means opposition has to prove that the outcomes of this vision could be changed if maybe Odysseus and maybe the Cyclops act in another way. And there are two possible options that the motion will give. But I think the reason why we still win on that is that one, I think the idea or the the vision that is given comes from, let's say, the goddess of wisdom. That means she is the most qualified person that should give you information that you should listen to. Any other information that is given in the info side comes from other third parties that I don't think we can necessarily credit their perspective and view, because if the most intelligent person has spoken, that's maybe because they have weighed all the possible options that could occur when people act differently. So all the scenario could have been engaged because, yeah, she's the lady of wisdom. So I don't think opposition would prove that, let's say, the other outcome would happen, that the Cyclops would be merciful to that extent. I think that is an imagination that I think Odysseus has had himself. That is why we think is intrinsically more important that he kills Cyclops because of that mechanism. I think, secondly, there is no guarantee that the Cyclops would be merciful. Maybe a context of what Cyclops are. I think most of us have watched these movies and Greek mythology and stuff like that. First thing is that I don't think they're the most intelligent creatures. So most probably they are not capable of empathy and stuff like that. So there's no guarantee that it's going to be empathetic when we sort of leave them to not die and try to engage them and stuff like that. Yeah, so sure. So I don't think they're the most merciful. So I don't think there's a guarantee that they're going to be merciful at the end of the day. I think secondly, because of the vision, it says kills about how many people. I think 560 to that extent. That probably means that it is an entity or a person that actually enjoys killing. So a psychopath is a person that actually derives value from killing people. So that means there's more incentive to prove that this guy is actually going to be merciful for someone that enjoys that extent. So I don't think proposition is able to prove that someone that is capable of killing 560 people in one go is someone that you can touch the soft side of the heart and ensure that they do good things to the world and stuff like that. So yeah, shoot.
Vincent, in this debate, you're the most wise person, but that shouldn't inform how I debate. Engage.
Yeah, the idea is that a vision comes from the most intelligent and the wisest person. So whose opinion do you respect? That is what you have to engage. Like the hierarchy of respect. Obviously, I think you'd be the lowest person you listen to. So, two, the idea on backlash, which I think opposition tried to run. I think, firstly, because of the info slide, we know that Cyclops is a favorite of the gods. So that means it's trained, Odysseus is trained by other gods. That means there are many gods that actually like him. So, meaning Poseidon engaging, let's say, Cyclops would also sort of visit the same repercussion that, let's say, Odysseus would be fearing from Poseidon because he has backing from other gods as well. Because you can't train someone you don't necessarily like. So that essentially means that he has protection that will be guaranteed for him. I think, secondly, there is this stupid idea that exists within Greek mythology that gods should not interfere with, let's say, human sort of affairs and stuff like that, unless there's a god that has intervened. So I think Poseidon is aware of such things. So I don't think he's going to necessarily engage, let's say, Odysseus to sort of kill him to that extent because he also fears the repercussions of other gods. So I think what did we prove from opening government to think that I think because it is important to protect the people you love, because these are the people that are most approximate to you. These are the most people that gives you joy. These are the people that give you comfort. These are the people that make life meaningful. So without them, you are empty, you are pathetic, you're sad, you're lonely being in the world. That is why it's important for you to actually please them, make them happy, stuff like that. I think the vision gives this idea that these people are going to die, they're going to be killed, including your best friend. That means a world of misery is going to be vested on Odysseus. So that ensures that I think killing Poseidon, killing Cyclops is one that guarantees that he doesn't lose the people that are proximate to him. So it's a win on our side of the house. I think number two, killing Cyclops might be a net good for the world because I think Odysseus has the capacity to feel empathy for other humans because these Cyclops exist on Earth. So probably mean it living, like opposition says, is very strong, likes killing and stuff like that. Probably him living means more people actually dying. So him dying is a positive good for the world, and that is something that I think Odysseus would care about because he's a human being, he's able to experience things like empathy and stuff like that. So he probably thinks it's a good thing to protect other humans as well because, yeah, he's a human, he knows what it's like to lose people that he loves, know what it's like to pain and stuff like that. So I think with that, we win the debate.
Thank that speaker for that speech. We now welcome the DLO to close off the opening half of this debate. Here, here.
Am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Alright, cool. I'll begin my speech from a countdown. Just I think have to send shout out to Yala and his girlfriend, and yeah, for from being the bottom in the towel to making it to the finals. Just try and do the thing. Anyway, regardless, we move. Yeah. If you have a POI, I think I'll take it in my 5th minute. Regardless, me, I've done my part. I'm already in the finals. No give all. Okay, starting my speech in five, four, three, two, one. I'm going to start by engaging DPM speech because I think that's where the entire bit of the debate happens in Vicenti's speech. Then I think I'll go ahead and extend my case and look at specifically Odysseus as a character and why it's very important for him to make decisions on his own. Here's what Vicent tells us. Vicent tells us that you see, in Greek mythology, as gods, you're not really allowed in one way or another to engage with with in what humans happen. But then Vincent also forgets to analyze the fact that you see Cyclops is the son of Poseidon. So in one way or another, the gods are already engaging. So there's no guarantee that if Odysseus goes ahead and promotes some form of peace goes ahead and promotes some form of violence and ensures that mercy in one way or another is not promoted, then the gods are not going to attack. Why? Because you're already in a situation where you're in and of itself fighting with the son of a god. So this is why we think in most cases Odysseus decided to look for a better solution. Why? Because he perceived that you see this solution in most cases is much more better. Here's the contextualization to how the vision happens, right? Just picture this in your mind. You're coming back from war. You people have won a battle. It means that your soldiers in one way or another are exhausted. They do not really have the mantra. It means that at that point in time, an individual who was raised by the gods, it means when you're raised by the gods, one, you have all the knowledge in the world to study everything. People have been able to tell you that you must not be what's the word for it? Wait. Yes, you must not at any point have emotions why in most cases because you have to always survive. At that point in time, an individual decides to choose one aspect of the line and says, okay, cool, we're not going to kill a creature that is a child of a god. Why? Because we think peace is the much more important part. That is what my extension is going to focus on. And I'm going to show you how, first and foremost, it creates self-actualization for mortals and how it differentiates you as mortals from any other aspect, right? But let's go through a bit of engagement. First, Vincent goes ahead and tells us that you see, in most cases, Poseidon won't engage because he had told you and everything like that. Notice, Pano, what we're trying to show in this debate here as opposition is that fine, we need to understand how ruthlessness being mercy upon ourselves is not something that we engage or something that we perceive is going to mean self-actualization of mortality. Why? Because we think in most cases when you look at a character such as Odysseus, he's a mortal. So that is mere representation of what mortals are. Mortals are individuals who have emotions. Mortals are individuals who need to learn how to actually let go of issues and actually find a way more amicable way of solving issues. Why? Because war is very expensive. It takes up a lot of resources, and at the end of the day, individuals die. That is something we need to take into consideration, right? Now, that takes into aspects such as Cyclops not taking into empathy. We still think from our side that the fact that you have a vision and it had a loophole to it, right? If at any point Odysseus went ahead and showed his face, they would have a narrative that was totally different. Even at a point in time where we have Athena, the goddess of war, trying to tell you that you see, at this point in time, you must be able to kill Cyclops. The fact that we have an individual and we must always respect an individual in terms of perception and in terms of choices that they make, then this makes it a much more plausible divorce, a much more plausible debate. Why? Because at the end of the day, we guarantee that everything that Odysseus has to go through is much more important. Other thing that we're going to go ahead and rebut from the opening government's case is they talk about things like protecting many people. Here's the aspect behind it. You see, we achieve a lot of protection from both sides when we actually try to propagate peace treaties. Why? Because we think at the end of the day, war is very murky, like I've been able to contextualize and be able to characterize. War is very murky. It leads to death of a lot of people, right? But second and foremost, we need to understand that if we have an opportunity to actually have peace, and as opposed to going war, we must actually take the literal right. One, we understand that yes, there are going to be consequences that are dire, but we think as these consequences are dire, it is much more important for us to actually go ahead and create a system that guarantees that people actually have leeway to think. Why? Because when you go ahead and say that you must listen to Athena, then you're propagating the whole narrative that Odysseus did not have a mind of his own, and he must always take into consideration what other people think. This doesn't create any relevance for the character of Odysseus. It doesn't guarantee that he learns from his mistakes, which is something that we do not, and which is something we do not see growing up in the entire debate, right? Moving forward, here's something else that we received from the opening government. They come out and tell us that you see, in most cases, it is the obligation of Odysseus to actually, what's the word for it, to protect his soldiers because he values the lives of them. Here's the thing. we do not say that Odysseus does not have to protect his soldiers, but you see, for one literal aspect, for one point of his livelihood in this kind of format, he was actually thinking for humanity as a whole. What was better? Was it for us to broker a peace deal after my soldiers have just returned from battle and they might actually be exhausted, even if they have not all lost their lives? What would be much more better for us to go into another battle with a cyclops that could easily be terminated, or actually broker a peace deal that would actually be much more better? We told you our solution is pretty simple from our side, right? That we'll go ahead and spare the life of a cyclops, but at this point in time, we will actually advocate for Odysseus to actually reveal his image. Why? Because once you reveal your image, then it creates some form of literal aspect. And the fact that nobody loses their lives and nobody actually gets to fight, then that peace treaty on our aspect would actually be much more better. Before we go to our other cases of point and as to why I would self-actualize Odysseus, I'll take a POI from closing. Closing government, do you have a POI?
No, we don't. Wait for a speech.
Cool, Sawa, cool. Continuing with my extension. So, Chap, I'm just going to characterize to you what the character of Odysseus looks like, right? Look at it this way, and I implore you to use your imagination, right? You're a mortal who has been trained by gods to be ruthless. That means you're somebody who is knowledgeable. You're somebody who knows the art of war. You're somebody who is always going to choose survival over mercy. But then at a point in time, you are never supposed to leave any weakness behind. Why? Because it can lead to some form of war, which happens in the future aspect, right? But at a point in time, we look at it strategically, right? We say that at a point in time where an individual like this has gone to battle and returns back with his soldiers, at some point in time, even if he gets into war, there is still going to be lives that are going to be lost, which is something that we're able to notice, right? But number two, it comes down to things like him being able to broker peace, because peace was much more important. So my characterization is basically looking at the impacts of us saying that, the impact of us saying that, ruthlessness is something that we should be able to live upon if we're able to self-actualize. What is the problem with this kind of structure if we go with it as opening government tries to advocate? Two things. One, it brokers that violence must be the solution to every problem whatsoever. Anything that is amicable will not give us better implications in the long run. What is the problem with having that kind of mindset as opposed to a peaceful mindset? It means that you broker the ideology that you may not be able to sit down with individuals, however hard-headed they are, and find peace, even at a point in time where we lose our lives. Bring it back to the current status quo. We think in most cases, issues or wars that are happening can always be solved amicably, right? Where individuals get to sit down and notice that, okay, what is your side and what is my side? What does your side require and what does my side give you in the long run? You notice that we have a quid pro quo, but we have an opportunity to keep each other accountable. Your side that actually keeps on advocating for you must be able to protect yourself at all costs, creates a system of narcissism that shows you that, you see, we are better than everybody else. And because we are better than everybody else, we must be able to have that character trait that actually involves us going to violate and going to kill other individuals. What is the problem with this specifically? One is that you lose a lot of lives in battle and you do not have an opportunity to regress your resources, which means that as Odysseus is fighting constantly, it means that he's going to spend more of his resources on battlefields and trying to fight and trying to ensure that he cuts up. The problem with this is that you will always have enemies who are coming after you. With enemies coming after you, your life will never be peaceful, your life will never be tranquil, which is something we think a mortal in most cases seeks at the end of the day, right? He wants to have peace, but he must go into war. We give you another line of aspect where we say we need to broker peace. Why? Because peace in most cases is happening when individuals go ahead and say, for once, let's go ahead and sit down and take away the aspect of we being ruthless and having some form of internalization for ourselves. Why is that much more better from our side? And why is it that Paul tells you in most cases from our case that you have an opportunity to have what's it called? You have better perspectives that create some form of self-actualization for you as an individual. Why is that more? Why is that much more important? Jesus, why is that more important as I summarize my case? Two things. First is that on our side, you have an opportunity to change the whole narrative. Why? Because you've been given a vision that shows you how everything is going to happen, how your friends are going to die. The only visual aspect that you're unable to take into consideration is simple, right? That one, you as an individual fail to see that if you want to have peace on your side, or if you want to solve all the deaths and ensure that it never really happened, you focus on one aspect. Odysseus gets to show his face to the Cyclops, and at that point, we believe that there's going to be some form of perspective or persuasion to force the Cyclops not to fight, because we've been able to characterize Odysseus as an individual who has been raised by the gods. So him providing some form of mercy to the Cyclops in one way helps to put the fighting that will actually happen. We think this is much more better on our side. Why? Because I've shown you what ruthlessness on their side doesn't really guarantee to us, which Vincent doesn't really take into consideration. And with that, we rest our case. Thank you. Jesus, I don't finish.
All right, thank you. Now comes the member of government to kickstart the first half of this debate. Here.
Okay. Wait. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. My heart is pounding. I don't even understand this motion. This is new. Okay. So, like a shout out to who first? Okay, Denise for carrying me all the way from round one to this round. Then shout out to James, although he's not on the call, but I'm supposed to give him a shout out always. I don't know why you're forcing me to do that. Then shout out to what? This tournament doesn't have a prize money. Okay, so or a trophy. So I just say shout out to the win. Yeah, shout out to the win. Maybe we'll win, maybe we'll not. But yeah, you gotta consider the person who shouted out to the win. Let me just see if I can do something here. All right, so POI is in the text space, strictly there. Please don't budge at any point because I'll start fighting with you. All right, so I'm going to start in the next 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1, go. Speaker, in an actors debate, government teams are supposed to defend the actor within the best interest of the action being taken. But then secondly, from opposition, you're supposed to show us how that action is more likely going to harm the actor. When you then include things such as society or other external factors without considering the actor, it then means that you are more likely not defending the motion in itself. At a point in time when I'm able to show you this coming from closing government, we are proud to be the KYDUS Trials 2024 champions. 2 points of clarity, 3 points of extension will exist in this speech. The first is on the extent of how choice looks like on an individual. We tell you 2 things under this. Firstly, an action you are aware of means that you have an obligation to create peace for individuals. Because you, as a general, you have the best interest at heart of the army that comes after you, which means that when you have an idea or when you have an action to eliminate any form of harm that's more likely going to come from them, you're supposed to take that action. Secondly, peace is eliminated due to the soldier's life being taken away, which means that you no longer have your form of responsibility. You've gone against that oath. We think that responsibility that you have under people among you means that you have an extent of how you need to be variable, and the only way you can protect these individuals is by killing the cyclops. The second piece of extension, the second piece of clarity is the way you are governed by the actions that you take and how they impact the individuals that exist around you in terms of a lot of connectivity. 2 things here. Firstly, you are already trained to be ruthless. So that means that in your consideration of how you're going to take this action, you don't consider care, you don't consider empathy, you don't consider all those nice things. It means that you can just kill these individuals without you turning back or whatsoever, because you already understand that within your own blood there's that ideas of how you can just do it without lifting a finger. The second thing is you owe the people that follow you a safety mechanism, and we think we value that safety mechanism that you owe because you have fought battles with these individuals, and you need to ensure that those battles that you win, you need to ensure that they were the major individuals who made you win those battles. And we think for you to protect them is based specifically on the decision that you're going to be making. It's interlinked and connected on how you're going to be governing that. 3 points of extension. The first extension is 1, how exactly are you going to sleep at night at a point in time when you take the decision of not killing the cyclops? 4 things. We think firstly, your mentality each and every night will never cease to have peace. Why is this the case? Because you already had a vision and you decided not to protect these individuals. It means that you understand that every day you had responsibility and obligation that you do not take or uphold at all, which means that you're going to be more and more harming your mentality in terms of how you sleep at night. But the second thing is these are the nightmares that will forever haunt you, because the people that exist around you is where protection comes comes first from. When you can't consider that protection, it means that you failed in terms of how you lead these individuals. And that only form of protection can come from killing these cyclops. But the third thing is like we think the individuals, like the terms of like engagement and interactions that you had with these individuals is what caused your form of growth. And this is exactly, even though you were trained by the gods, that means that your growth and the form of functionality that existed within you, you owe it and is subjected to these individuals. It means a part of you is interlinked and connected to them. Because understand what you're more likely going to do. When you don't kill the cyclops, it means that you are more likely going to harm these individuals because you already had a vision, right? But you understand that the success that you had within battles, within a lot of assignments you have been created, we subjected to these individuals. You eliminate the value of that success. You eliminate exactly the core philosophy of what it literally meant within those ideas. We don't think you gain a form of like better utility in your own form of like interest when you want to promote functionality, or when certain assignments come, you're more likely going to harm your personal growth. The second thing is, how are you going to cope up with these decisions in everyday life? Two things here. Firstly, you have lost a number of soldiers, which means that the recovery will be hard for you. Why is this the case? Because these soldiers were the individuals that were interlinked towards your own form of like that ideas of how you trained them, and they were like have that ideas of how they were subjective to how each and every interaction that you created in life, you owe it to these individuals. It's going to be very hard for you to adapt, but secondly, for you to recover from this certain type of shock, which is more likely going to be harming you in terms of like the interactions that you have in terms of like your day-to-day lives. But the second thing is like interactions and engagement becomes difficult for you, because like there isn't any form of like backward that you're going to go, right? It means that one, you have to literally adapt to the conditions that are now like existing within your own world, which might literally be hard. But secondly, the gods might want to give you assignments, etc., and you want to continue proving your success, you want to continue proving your worth. You eliminate all these values that exist within you, because most importantly, you eliminate the individuals that are subjected towards that success. We think we need to promote that form of functionality within you. We need to promote that form of like progressive nature that exists within you. But the third piece of extension is like, what gives purpose to a man who leads an entire army, and what is the inherence that exists within him? Before this, I'll take you, Oyal. Go ahead.
Okay, from your side, explicitly, how do you get this specific individual, or this or whatever the name is, to become autonomous? But secondly, your very existence is a threat to the gods. How do you protect the individuals when you cease to exist as well?
Wait, what? All right, so two things here. The first is, we don't think like Oyala can run with this, because we think like the info side already shows to you that there's a vision that exists towards like your people being harmed, and you need to ensure that you can protect these individuals, because that's the obligation and responsibility that you have. That's how you sustain this. We don't know what kind of assignments are going to be given. We don't know exactly. That's the information that we have, and we think we have to debate towards that. This debate is based basically on protecting the interest that exists within this actor. The third piece of extension, what gives purpose to a man who leads an entire army? We give you two things here. Firstly, we think that the preservation of people who exist under you is what gives that form of purpose. It means that value and success in the form of progressive that you have is interdependent on those individuals. Why then does it then become an obligation for you to protect them? Because one, you have like that assigned, you have that like that autonomous like thought that you have, that means that you need to continue succeeding, but second, you need to continue functioning, right? We think there's a form of limited functionality and progressive that exists here at a point in time when like say you don't kill the cyclops. But the second thing is like, most importantly, right? And this is like, when you lead armies, you don't lead them to death. That's not exactly what exists towards this. When you lead people, you lead people to glory. Opening opposition and closing oppositions would lead these individuals to death. When you kill the cyclops, it means that you lead them to glory, and you have fulfilled what it means to lead a form of army. With this, we are proud to be winning these finals.
All right. We thank that speaker for the speech. We now welcome the member of opposition. Kickstart CEO's case. Here.
Okay, hi. I'll be doing extensions today for this particular round. Oh, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Jeff, will you allow me just put the info slide in the chat because people have ignored a lot of content. If someone can help me put it that quicker, because I'm struggling to scroll up. I'm using a PC. Someone help me target in group. Shit. No one's tagging it for me. God. It's just gonna take a minute.
The info slide was in the main room,
Oh,
so I
yeah. Oh, someone's tagged it for me though.
okay.
Thanks. Lovely. Okay, so if you have a POI, please don't spam the chat. I'll be able to take it by myself. Shout out to my partner who has been able to drag me to finals. It's not easy. So I'm going to start my speech. Oh, timer. Okay, so I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. Panel, I think it was a very bad idea for Ray to do the extension. I think Denise, who's more conversant with Greek mythology, should have done that, but that's bad. So let's just take them out in good fashion. So I think we concede with Ray's part of that bad push, and that's why we think that the opening half is very disingenuous. Is that everything they explain, they never link back to why the actor gets an inherent benefit from it. I think it is just a whole lot of throwing mitigatory rebuttal around that doesn't help the round. But even then, most importantly, I don't get much analysis as to why that is something that is particularly important. I'm going to do 3 things in this particular debate that I feel are particularly going to be important. I'm going to extend in, run unique minority analysis, and then have an extension out. Let's start with the in extension, and I'll just have to engage them as soon as I'm done with my positive matter. Is that the first concept of the in extension in of itself is that there is a good argument that comes from the concept of people having an obligation and the fact that they're able to make their own decision. I think Paul does a one-liner on this and Peter runs an impact, but they never both mechanize this thing to see it through. It's not organized. So just because they talk about it, they don't take credit for it. Let's take this one. I think firstly, is that individuals in of themselves seek to create a meaningful journey to their end. The problem with these individuals and for any human being is that the reason why they seek to attach themselves to look for gods or to do anything in a particular world is to be able to make their own particular decision. We concede that gods are necessary factors within the round, but this is not God omnipotent. This is Greek mythology. The characterization I can give you of these gods is 3 key respects because no one gives it to you, and this is important. One, these gods believe in 4 things in particular that are important. The reason why they have kids is 1, sexual gratification, 2, vengeance, 3, honor, and 4, to reward their individuals. I think the most important thing here that you should going to take in the debate that is contentious is their honor and their legacy. So we say that in a very large majority, these are gods of wrath. So all they care about and every action that they do is supposed to seek their glorification and showing them as the ulterior individuals. We say that this then goes as far as individuals then having to go against their own way, their own decisions to make it something better. We say that for individuals to make decisions on their own is the most important factor in the round. We say that in our world, you get to have most important decisions. What's the premise of this argument? We say you're able to have maximized choices that accrue to you. The reason why this is important is two particular levels of mechanization. One, which is unique in this debate, is that at the end of the day, there is a multi-god conflict that is going on around Olympus. I think not just Olympus, but around godhood, around the whole resolution around the Titans, and very many gods taking different sides on very many controversial issues. This happens in very many fronts. Notice, I'll just give you three examples. Reason, for example, kids like Luke, son of Hermes, who was having a conflict with Percy Jackson, god of Poseidon. I think even in those scenarios, everybody has an interest to protect their child. That is why even when Luke was doing whatever he wanted to do, gods don't necessarily interfere because they don't want to have issues with other gods. We say you having to make a decision predicated one on the advice of another god, that is according to Vincent, necessitates that you involve yourself by picking a side. You inherently become a proxy in a particular scenario between individuals. We say that advice of another god then makes most of these things problematic for you as an individual. So you become a problem to other gods that would want to alleviate you. So you would want to have your first bigger problems. So it's cool that probably Poseidon has been able to kill 43 of these individuals. But in the world where you kill this person, you're still gonna lose people. That means another god is going to come and attack you because you're engaging yourself in proxy conflict. I think that in that particular world, because you take a decision to predicate it on yourself, it becomes bad. But ours is inherently because he self-actualizes, because this particular regard is able to make a decision based on himself. I'm going to do a bracket impacting on this argument, but for now, I'll take a POI. 3.
So you missed
Yeah.
the premise that Odysseus is not a god. So any involvement in his conflict by a god is what results in the repercussion from a god. And Poseidon is aware of that.
Yeah. That's the shittiest framing you could run in the round, Vincent, for two reasons. One, there are people like Perseus who are human individuals and lived for a very long time because gods were able to protect them. And I think that is something you fail to analyze in your context. But two, that's a contradiction. You say gods are gonna protect this guy, then you say at the end of the day, he's gonna die. That's just very shitty in that particular regard. I think this is something that is particularly important to being calm now. I think one thing we then have to understand, Pano, particularly important on impacting, is that when he's able to take his own decision, he shows that he's resisting influence of gods so that he can be able to run his own destiny. It means two things. One, it means that the 43 men get to live to talk about this story, not just on the amazing feat of being able to blind a cyclops in that particular regard and negotiate and tell him to be a more peaceful person, but the fact that he's able to then stand against a god in literal sense means that he gains a strong identity and complexity of himself. No side in the house tells you why Odysseus didn't care about these things. I tell you this because for three reasons. One, Odysseus is a human being who strives for legacy. That's why he even put himself there to be trained by God so that he can be the most ruthless individual. Just take out the whole concept of the fact that he's training by God's an obligation from Ray. I think that doesn't work because even the matter of the fact that he's able to become and forgive this person and still forgive individuals shows that his training to become ruthless is inconsistent with his character. We said the side that becomes more consistent with someone's identity is the side that wins this round. The fact that you conform to an identity that is not yours means that you live sleepless nights regretting every decision that you take that is not according to you, but because of a certain puppet master. But two, you make a decision of itself that is predicated on yourself. So at least on our side, you get to sleep well at night with a lot of people who glorify you for being able to stand against a god, blind a very one of the most feared cyclops in Greek mythology, but also most importantly, being able to take charge of your own destiny. So that willpower goes on into society. That means everybody becomes an extension of your identity and your decision. I don't think Op can give you a benefit far better than, sorry, Prop can give you any side can give you a benefit far better than that in this debate. You being able to be an extension or having a whole generation and generations becoming an extension of your identity is a big burden. We say in our world, and the sum of our extension is one sentence that I'm going to give you, is that become a god of your own by taking the decision not to be able to kill the cyclops. We say that makes you the biggest beneficiary. We give you the biggest benefit to the actor in this round. Vote opposition.
Thank that speaker for that speech. We now welcome the government whip to close government's case. Here.
All right, just a confirmation if I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay, let me just set up the timer and I'll be able to begin. Okay, so shout out to Ray, shout out to James, and shout out to David. I just heard everyone shouting out, and shout out to Cynthia and Raima. Okay, my timer has refused to be set up. Um, okay, so I'll just set up a timer, and I'll now begin. Henry, do you mind unmuting yourself?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So I'll begin in 3, 2, 1, and go. But no, when Henry tells you that from their side, they achieve what is best for Odysseus and still runs what OO tells you, that there is more self actualization, we think that then they do not get the info slide right. We think that the reason why Odysseus is able to stay with 43 men out of 600, it is because he has actually left the cyclone or whatever he is. If he was able to kill the cyclops or anything, he wouldn't be put in this situation. So we think that the failure to prove to us and justify to us why, even when they have not yet reached where they are going and still are on a journey, that losing more men because they're not able to maybe fight this guy, they're going to reach safely, or why they think it is in the best interest of them to continuously pursue peaceful means which have failed. We think that two things are very important. That one, at a point in time that these individuals are able not to show mercy, or even Cyclops when they try to bargain and negotiate with him, and he still fails to show the kind of mercy, and they still give him a second chance to do so, we think that he's then not capable of having a deal or a negotiation that is going to happen. So we think that even when OO wants to convince you that in the best case scenario, you're going to have peace, which is good for maybe Odysseus to be seen as a hero at the expense of his men, at the expense of his army, at the expense of energy, time, resources he has put to train this army, we think that then it becomes problematic. But then the second thing, why isn't he able to achieve any form of self-actualization even when CO wants to tell you this? We think that one, at the point in time that you fail to protect individuals who have been there for you, or even when you fail to preserve their lives on a moral basis, we think that then it becomes problematic. Notice that these individuals who are under his care, he has a responsibility to continuously protect them, but two, to prevent any further harm that is going to occur to them. But three, beyond even that, he has the right of self-preservation. He has the right of defense. Because we think that even though what Ray tells you, that self-defense is the most important thing for this individual, is that it lies in the whole entire of self-preservation. We think that when humans are posed with any challenge or with any threat to their lives, they're actually justified to do anything even when it means killing. That is why Ray is able to impact and analyze to you that if this individual is not able to do what is in the best interest of his men, but what is going to help him sleep better at night, then we think that that is not what he wants as an individual. We think that he has failed the army. Also, we think that he has defied the gods, and I'm going to show you why that then becomes important. What Oyala asks in his POI becomes very irrelevant. He asks that this motto is actually a threat to gods, which we think that is very hilarious and ridiculous. We think that a motto has never been a threat to gods, because anytime your life ends and gods are immortal in some way and they possess some supernatural strengths or anything that you do not have, they are continuously shown as people who know what the right is, but two, who have the kind of wisdom, but three, the kind of strengths that any mortal cannot possess. So we think that there is no any reason or analysis that is there to prove that he actually acts as a threat. But three things why we think that it is in the best interest for him to follow the vision. And this is exactly what our opening ignored, and why we give you a comparative on that. We think that one, there is always a larger play to how Greek mythology works. For example, if a god is going to tell you that you should follow this entire path. We think that there is something planned out for your entire destiny. It means at a point in time that you go wrong, you go against the entire destiny, and there is some sort of consequences that are going to exist. That's why when you get maybe a vision from Athena to kill a Cyclops and you fail to kill him, you're going to have your entire army being killed. We think that those consequences come from defying one, the vision, two, failing to fulfill the kind of visions that you receive from God, because this is what it always shows. Like you fail to acknowledge the God's authority or the representation of a higher power that they actually have. We think that then it becomes problematic. Three, we think at a point in time that you're not able to fulfill this vision, even when you have not reached home, you have a chance of losing more of your soldiers to this cyclone. Andre tells you why this then becomes problematic. Because we think that Odysseus, to have this entire army, he has used a number of resources, whether it is time or energy, to continuously train them to become the best army. Because you see, he has gone to a war where he has not lost any of them, and he only gets to lose them to Cyclops' dad or anything because of failure to kill Cyclops. So we think that then that becomes problematic and doesn't help him to continue become the general. But then I'll go to the third thing, but before that, I'll take a POI.
Okay, so King Leonidas stood against the Persian Empire, stood for a person who was literally a god, and he was named immortal. His legacy lived on. Why is
Yeah,
it bad for Odysseus to do the same thing, to get his name solidified in history as a person who stood to a god?
PI.
Oh, yeah, like your POI.
Okay, let me just make it brief. How do you ensure that society is still protected when you cease to exist yet you kill the Cyclops? And why don't you credit mental autonomy just like the actions you do as Odysseus? Engage. Simple.
Pardon. Here, Odysseus doesn't have that choice. The choice is either to die and fail to protect your men, or it is to kill the Cyclops and continue living with the few men that you're left with. That only leaves you a choice to preserve your life or to make sure that you protect other individuals that are under your care. Standing against a god is not what is going to make you better, but protecting the kind of people that you have, the kind of army, that is what makes you have a legacy and being able to protect them. At a point in time that you fail to protect them, even when you're against the god, there is nothing you have to live for because the individuals that were making it worth living are dead, and there is nothing you can do to the cycle. Going to what Rahim asks, Rahim tells you that these individuals always get that autonomy by standing against a god. But you see, in a situation where the Cyclops or even the god has continuously killed your men and you haven't even made it back home, if you leave that Cyclops, the choice is you either kill him or you do not kill him. Even the kind of mental autonomy that they want to tell you exists, we think that then does not exist. But what do we tell you? Three things. We tell you that it's justified on one, self-preservation. At a point in time that you have to defend yourself, even when it means taking another person's life, then it is justified. Any threat that is posed to you as a human being, you have the right to protect yourself. But two, on moral duty to protect other individuals that are under yourself. This is where maybe our opening tries to tell you that they have responsibility, but they do not impact you and show you what then happens when these people are killed. But three, we think that then this becomes a response that is proportionally considered to neutralize the threat. Or for example, even when the Cyclops wants to kill you or what, you're able to neutralize the threat and preventing further harm. The fourth thing we tell you is that you're able to fulfill the vision of the gods, and I'm able to show you why that usually plays great in Greek mythology, because it's certain of a cosmic play that if you do not fulfill one part, there are certain consequences that you have to face that are actually larger than what usually happens. This, for example, looks like where Oedipus was able to defy the gods and he continuously had to suffer in life until his death. So we think that this is not what Odysseus would want. So four things that you get from our side, and we think we rank above all the other teams.
I think she's muted, or is it just me?
Her time is
Mate.
Denise, your time is up. Chair, do I proceed?
Yeah, proceed.
So I don't know about shout outs. I just want to shout out to everyone who came to this. Tony, those we do spars with, blah blah. And yeah, I think that's generally it. Thanks for the initiative. POI is in the chat space, but I'm up whip. I don't think any POI could be relevant. I'll start in 1, 2, 3. Chair and panel. Moral cowardice is when we fear the preached consequences of our outcomes and forget the true intention of our moral choices that we derive by ourselves, and that is what necessarily OG and CG argues for. The same way you feel perplexed when someone tells you, oh, don't do ABCD because this will happen, you might get hurt and things of the like, is the same way you must be perplexed by the same idea. People actualize because of the intention they set by themselves and the choices they make, even if they have any sort of information that best fulfills their destinies and writes them as heroes within their own stories. Let's engage what happens in the debate. Let's just do some way ups. These guys argue for the deaths of soldiers as if it is something that is significantly important. I'm also going to show you why these specific soldiers still have like some level of allegiance, and that affirms the general position of this specific OD as per se. These guys lost when they arrested this, when they got this Cyclops, right? This guy lost 6 soldiers, including his friend. If these guys weren't committed to his cause, they would have literally walked away because he's just let 6 of their soldiers die. But that is how genuinely they are attached to this specific being. We don't think there's a level of mistrust. We think there's some kind of level of attachment to Odi, and whatever decision he makes is in the best interest of his legacy and their fellowship. Let's engage on the other thing. These guys still argue as if death is very important in this context, but they forget this is a world of war and death. These guys literally take death within war as something that is important to them because they are going to go to a place like Valhalla. Dying within war, dying within fighting different species is what gives them gratification as soldiers. Notice, taking this choice is robbing them of that death. And mute. Unless I'm in. Yeah, confirm I'm audible. I didn't hear that.
I said, yeah, you are audible. Just resume the timer.
All right. So we say taking this specific choice is robbing your own soldiers of this death in war and leaving them to stay idle by their lives, because when they choose the path of a soldier, they ideally choose to die for not only your cause, but to die for the idea of defeating all these creatures that exist that are supersedingly higher than mortals in the first place. Not only does it mean that, you also deny yourself the survival from the wrath of a god known Poseidon. You're literally going to stand with 48 of your soldiers that are going to say, we survived the war with Poseidon. We might have our brothers lost, but we most definitely are still standing. So let him preach as whatever he wants, but we literally dragged down a god from where he was to come and fight us, and we still survived to tell the story. I think this specific impact comes from CO's case when he tells you about fulfilling your destiny and not eroding your own choices just because another god informs you. Notice this level of impact supersedes anything else in the debate, because if this is a story as per se, then the ultimate kind of actualization you're supposed to have is how independent your choices are. The comparative in this debate is very simple. All the benefits you accrue as a soldier when you take as Odi, when you take the other decision, are not yours. They are freaking Athena's, because she has provided you with that kind of insinuance or that kind of information that allows you to understand how to save your own people. You feel allied to her. You feel like your life now belongs to Athena's because she has allowed you to protect those specific people. We don't think how the best actualization of this is able to come about. Let's just go deeper into this debate. The other argument you had is like on that sort of self-culpability that exists when you see the vision and then don't kill the soldiers. I think it is worse, because what it means within this world is that there was a certain fate that was dictated for you to happen for you. Also, that fate is chosen by you, but you go to a fate that Athena's advice. It means every single time, even if you've survived, you continuously lose people. You think you are losing because you necessarily altered something within your own fate and destiny. We think that is necessarily bad because it then makes you more self-culpable. However much you lose, so just the daughter you're going to have, all these specific sort of things that come towards you are not connected to you. They are connected to a fate that Athena saw for you and didn't actually make it like your own choice and derived out of you staying by your own intentions that you had in the first place. Notice there are two things you get from this kind of way up. The first is any good thing you are able to get out of the choice that is made in the debate on side OG or CG does not literally belong to you. Secondly, any bad choice, any bad impacts that come out of you living this specific world is also self-culpable to you, because you altered the way reality ought to be in the first place. You altered the idea that you're necessarily supposed to stay that very continuous as per your specific ideals and things of the like. But before I continue, OG, okay, Raymond.
Okay, so what's the comparative on your side, honestly?
Okay, cool. Raymond.
Okay, so Raim, the extent here, you need to show us that your impacts are literally interlinked to the actor. When you fail to do this, where's the extension?
In God's sake. So I think they all address the same thing. Where is the comparative? The comparative is you're only able to live with the consequences of your action if that specific action is derived solely from you, not informed by other beings, not gotten from a specific vision, because that makes you more culpable because you think you have changed fate and things of the like. The comparative is on our side, and the worst case scenario is that you're going to lose people. You're going to freaking survive and know that in whatever sort of resolve it took for you to live that life, it is your freaking life, not Athena's influence, not any of those things. I think this is better on our side for two specific levels. We are able to show the gratification you get out of this choice as an individual who literally writes through their own free will in a world that is pledged by gods who want to influence you, use you as a pawn, ensure that they can command over mortals. This specific impact is the most important impact in the debate, because it is the only thing that then shows how you substantively exist as a sole entity within this specific world. Let me see what OG argues in this debate. Odi says that what happens necessarily is, oh, these people are going to attack you anyways, and you're going to live in a world of... Wait, okay, let me just continue. Odi argues that you're consistently going to be attacked and things of the like if you take this specific choice. That is okay, because you can literally live with those specific consequences in the very first place, given those choices are derived from yourself by sticking to your ideals, by sticking to the future self you are that literally might have made that specific choice. I think on our way up, we are able to win this debate because we best show why mortals within the realm of immortals ought to have their own free will and make decisions minus being pawns. Vote for CO.
Right, with that, we've come to the end of the debate. Please join me in the deliberation room. Have a lovely evening, everyone. I think you'll find out the results when the winners are being announced.
Wait, shout out to my partner Grace for making this tournament memorable. Sorry I didn't do that during my speech.
I thought it was Samrawit. Oh, okay.
Please, the name is Grace. I don't know where I think Samrawit came from.
Halimat, could you please join me in the deliberation room?
Sorry, I'll join now. My phone is hanging. I'll join.
you.